Hello and welcome aboard. In this Watch and Learn episode, I'm going to be talking to a two-brother team that is using onboard action cameras to help them improve their performance. These two brothers are especially fun to watch because they bring a lot of personality and they are passionate about sharing their love for sailing. I always make it a point to tune in to their Sailing with My Brother YouTube channel after every regatta for some entertaining and educational content. I've been looking forward to learning how Kevin and Kendall go about doing what they do so we can learn a thing or two. Whatever they are doing is working because they are getting better and sailing faster. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the Kunz brothers. How you guys doing?
Thank you, Eric. Great.
Thank you, Eric. Great to see you.
Just so everybody knows, I'm in Indiana, and my brother is not in Indiana. He's in Washington State, and we meet at the regatta sites to go sail. So,
Well, all right, guys. You guys have basically come onto the scene, come on with a lot of enthusiasm. You made a big splash, and you came out of nowhere, and you guys bought a boat that we were familiar with. You changed the name of it. No, you didn't change the name of it, did you? And you guys have been putting out videos, and so a lot of people who are in the Flying Scot circles are probably going to recognize your stuff. But number one, I just want to say thanks, guys, because you guys are putting out content, and everybody's talking about it, and you're helping promote our sport. You're helping promote our class. You're doing a lot of cool stuff. So before we get into the details, I want to say thanks. But I also want to say that I'm really intrigued, and I want to learn how you guys are doing this because, as you guys know, I dabble in this stuff. And I started going through the process, and I think the GoPro stuff took great shots. If you looked at the GoPro Hero cameras, and I started to get into the 360 recently, but I didn't love the quality of the 360, but I loved the editing capabilities of what it could do. And but the quality, there was a trade-off there. And you guys went with, I believe, the Insta360. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you get it does a lot of the cool stuff with the editing and it's basically like a cameraman within the camera, and you can point it anywhere you want to go in editing. But the quality is phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how you guys do it, and probably picking up one or two of my own and going with your program if you guys can tell me how to do it here. So. So how do you guys go about doing it? What was your thought process, and how did you land on your whole program?
go ahead, Kendall.
Well, Eric, again, thanks for having us. And, doing the 360 videos was really something that we fell into. It was not something that we planned. So Kevin and I competed together some 30 years ago and hadn't sailed together, for that length of time. He invited me to go to a regatta, and I said, yeah, let's go see how we can do. And when I arrived, I had my 360 camera, and I said, hey, I have my 360 camera. Why don't we figure out a way to put it on board and just take some video of our races? And we did that. It was kind of jerry-rigged the first time that we did it. And we got back, and we just could not believe the video that it captured. And so in addition, we also got, 2 bullets in that very first regatta that we went back to. And so we thought, okay, well, let's get back on the circuit like we used to do 30 years ago. And we made arrangements to do video for each one of them and try to learn, because we learned so much from that first regatta having a camera on board, and it was fantastic. I think in the description below, hopefully you can post a link to a video of how we place those cameras on board, because we have one in the bow side and one in the stern side. If not, we also have on Sailing with My Brother YouTube channel that video that you can find. Kevin?
And does it say where you place it and everything in that video?
Sure
It
does.
does.
Right.
It does. And in fact, what we do is we have a camera mounted right behind the mast step, and it's a 360 camera, so you can see up and back, etc. But we typically focus that camera back toward the crew work, so we can see, okay, what's our foot placement like? What are we doing with boat handling, etc. And then we have a camera mounted on our tiller, which again, another 360, and it allows us to look around and also see where we are with respect to our competitors. And that gives us some really interesting feedback We also have a third component to it, and that is a small GPS unit. Now, the GPS unit captures data like speed, direction, inclination, slope, et cetera. Now, a lot of that we don't need. And inclination is equivalent to heel, which is usually off. But what it does do is it allows us to track our path as we're sailing upwind. And in one of the videos, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the learnings that that kind of information provided for us.
Okay,
Eric, I think it's important to point out that none of that information from that GPS unit is available to us on board while we're sailing. And in fact, during a regatta, we have no time to go back and look at those videos because the videos require about a 7-to-1 ratio of edit time to taking time. So for every hour of video, we probably spend 7 hours editing the videos so that we can actually learn something from it. And there really is no time to do that during a regatta.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kendall. Thanks.
so tons of editing time, which I know, but maybe the people watching don't appreciate. The other thing is if someone's going to get into this, does your video tell them the basics of how to do it, or is there anything else you would want to say to somebody who's thinking about getting an action cam that maybe you didn't cover in that video you might want to share?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the other video captures it pretty well. I think that the only other thing is, what are the processing steps that we go through? And actually, that's sort of an intermediate. So we know where the cameras are placed. That's one video. And then this video is going to tell us what we learn from the videos once we process them. There's an intermediate step, and that is, what are the processing steps that we go through? And we've developed an outline for that, but we have not put together the pathway for that. That's probably another 20-minute video or so. That covers the 7-hour time frame that Kendall's talking about for a 1-hour regatta.
Let me ask you this. How much video editing experience did you have before you started this endeavor?
I had none.
Well, that's good.
I did have a considerable amount of editing experience, but not with the Insta360 software. And the two most popular pieces of equipment are both the Insta360 or the GoPro, and they each have a separate software system. So getting yourself familiar with that system is, very important.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, that's the answer I was hoping to hear, because if Kevin can learn it, and if I can learn it, I think you guys can too. So if you're watching this and you want to try and use that video, these guys are going to help you where to mount and where to get the great shots, which is a lot of trial and error, I could tell you from experience. And then the editing part there is a learning curve, but it is surmountable. So Kevin and Kendall, what video do you want me to start at, and we'll take you there.
Sure, Eric. We just got back from the Kentucky Bourbon Regatta in early October, and this was an interesting regatta. So let's maybe start with that one, and I'll kind of walk through the introduction of some of the conditions as the video pops up here.
All right, let's go there.
Okay, so we started this race. This is race number 1, and we started this race in about 5 knots of wind. Is a windward leeward twice around, and the pin end was heavily favored at the start. The wind dropped throughout the race, and you can see it's extremely light now in this video. And so right now we are just ahead of Bill Vogler. We led the entire race, came around the final top mark, headed toward the finish. And you can see in the inset picture, Bill is on our port hip back there. So as we came around that top mark and as we approached the finish line, for whatever reason, we decided that the boat end of the finish line was favored. And you can hear us talking about it in the video here at a certain point. And why? There's a little, we just talked about, we want to finish at the boat end. but the pin end was favored at the start. Well, if the pin end is favored at the start upwind, the pin end is going to be favored at the finish downwind. Well, somehow we got it screwed up in our minds, and we said, okay, well, we're going to go for the boat end, and we jibed. And here in a little bit, you're going to see us jibe, um, and then unfortunately we did not. We broke a fundamental rule, didn't we, Kendall?
We did indeed. What we should have done is stayed between our nearest competitor, who was in second position, and the finish line. We just didn't do that. We bailed on it. We went toward the one end of the line. He went toward the other end of the line. If we would just have positioned ourselves in between the second place finisher and the finish line, like, there's no way he would have got around us. And we just broke a fundamental rule. It was, yeah.
And if we had stayed there, we would have won the regatta. Because
yeah, what's interesting about this particular regatta is the top three finishers were all within 1 point of each other. So I don't remember what the total points were, but first place finisher had a certain total of points, and then Bill Vogler, and then second and third were actually tied. Had we come in first on this race instead of second, we would have won not only this race, but we would have won the whole regatta. And instead, we came in third. It was literally that close in terms of the overall points.
Right. So I'm going to kind of walk through here. We're jibing now, and this is where the back camera battery died. So when we're racing, we're not paying attention to what's going on with the cameras. We do a lot of post editing afterwards, and so what you see is all the imagery is being captured now from the forward camera. You can see from the larger picture that the forward camera is mounted just aft of the mast, and so you can have it focus on us in the back of the boat. You can also have it focus around on the competitors a little bit. And here we're clearly in front of Bill. You can see we're passing his bow. We've got maybe a 2, maybe 3 boat length lead. And right about there, we should have jibed back and gone back the other way. See, there's our note. Okay. But we didn't do that. Yeah. We continued on, and we're going to go ahead and let this play out. But we continued on because we thought mistakenly and honestly stupidly that the boat end was favored. So we thought, well, we'll keep going this way, and we'll get up to the boat end on a hot angle, and we'll cross in front of Bill. Well, you know what? The pin end was favored, and we did not beat Bill, unfortunately. So,
but we should have just stayed in front of him, forgetting about which end was favored. Just stay between your nearest competitor and the finish line. You're fine. So
exactly.
Right. Let me ask you guys a question. How much of this is just replaying what you guys already know and like, oh yeah, that was fun for entertainment, and how much of it do you guys use to pick up things that maybe you didn't pick up on or didn't notice out on the course? What's the balance there?
Well, so again, even after we finished the race, I was still confused as to why Bill beat us. And when I went back and looked at the video, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so obvious. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you get in the heat of the moment and you can't think straight. And then on reflection, you see the video, which removes all doubt. And you say, okay, clearly we messed up right there. So
I would say yes. And to add to that, look, as far as entertainment purposes, I mean, the winds are so light here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be watching this video for entertainment purposes, only for learning. It was hard enough to sail in this light of wind, let alone go back and watch the video in this light of wind. So it's mostly for learning purposes, although we do have some very entertaining videos, in heavier winds that become, quite exciting because things move fast, right? So
Yeah. Okay, so this is the Glow Race 3. It's a difficult video for us to watch. There's about 40 boats registered, 20 in each fleet. Winds were a little squirrely, strong puffs and long lulls. Windward leeward course twice around. We got a terrible start in this regatta, in this particular race. In fact, you, Eric, were called over early, and you still rounded the top mark well ahead of us. We decided to do a jibe set. And if you're watching closely, you see that we don't get the spinnaker all the way up. And in fact, we posted, or there will be an arrow that shows up in the video that points out this incomplete set of the spinnaker. So we're watching, we're going downwind, and there's a problem with the spinnaker pole. Kendall, you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. So in addition to not getting the spinnaker all the way up, which is really a mistake that you should be able to recover from very quickly, particularly if you're paying attention to trimming the spinnaker. But the mechanical problem that we had is on the spinnaker pole, there's on each end, there's a single rivet that holds the clasp at each end of the spinnaker pole. And on the one end, one of those came out. Now, we didn't lose the end of the spinnaker pole, so we were still able to clasp it onto the sail. However, it spun around like 3 times, and so what you ended up having is you had the release spun, twisted around the pole like 3 times, and so it ended up being a real problem when you were trying to jibe and get things set, because it wasn't in the proper spot. If you have one that a spinnaker pole like that has a single rivet in there, you can drill the other side out and put a second rivet in there, and that's what we've done, post this regatta. But it was a problem at the race. Now, after we rounded the leeward mark, going either back up to windward or maybe it was on the second leeward mark, I went up and I just put some tape around it, and that held it for, I think, the next race as well. And so for the remainder of the regatta, some tape held it, which is always nice to have on board.
Well, what you're going to see in this particular video, very soon we're going to jibe to go back to the gate mark. We chose to do a jibe set and because we saw some heavy dark patches of wind. Well, it's really hard to jibe an unstable spinnaker, and the instability is caused by, being down 3-4 feet. So here we go. We're trying to jibe. Boom comes across. Kendall struggling to get the pole across because, of course, that the release for the jaws release is wrapped around the pole like 3 times because the end spun on him. And all of a sudden, we start to get hit by a really strong gust. And you'll see that I do exactly the wrong thing. I released the guy, and the spinnaker goes flying out to leeward. And it was at that moment, right about, it should be any second now, it was at that moment that our regatta was basically over. So yeah. Kendall gets the pole in, and there goes the guy. And now the spinnaker, see how the boat is heeling over? The spinnaker is not pulling the boat forward, it's pulling it over. So now we're in survival mode. And sure, we saw this, we knew that this was all messed up, but we're going to figure out a way to get through between all the boats. You can see the spinnaker is billowing out behind the leech of the main. Kendall has to go all the way back behind the boom to get the line. It's just a mess. We missed the gate. We missed the gate entirely. Oh my goodness. So what did we learn from this video, right? I mean, first of all, if you're going to go into disaster mode, try to lessen the disaster. I mean, you're going to see us here in just a little bit coming up on the committee boat. The committee boat is well below the gate. So Kendall does a nice job getting the spinnaker in without shrimping it, which is great. Then we have to beat back up to the gate to get around it. But we didn't hit anybody, and we didn't flip over. So right away, our competitors like us, and the rescue team likes us. So that's all good.
But we didn't like each other. I think at that moment there was dislike of each other.
That is for sure. And in fact, if you watch the video, there's a whole I don't know, 5 minute section where we do some Warner Brothers music to cover up the audio.
Well,
So, but the other thing is, we didn't know exactly how to deal with a spinnaker that is out of control. So the first thing is never let the tack go behind the forestay. Let the chute collapse onto the forestay. You'll go slow, but everything will be under control. And in fact, what we did the next day before the race, we actually tried that. So while there's not a lot necessarily that we learned from this video, it did show us a few things that we recognized that we needed to learn better, like check the hoist.
did you ever consider blowing the chute at any point so you can just pull it in and make the mark?
We tried, but because I had actually released the guy, we were afraid that it would go out and just drop in the water and become a shrimp net.
Well, that's what it would do, but you would make the mark.
Yeah.
I've done that once or twice, and to make the mark when we couldn't do it, just blow it and pull it in. You have a big wet sopping. May not be the right move, but it is an option.
Yeah, the other component was that there were about 15 boats coming up at us. And what we didn't want to do is have our spinnaker get fouled in any of their underwater appendages. Sounds
smart.
Yeah. And if you listen to the video, I'll tell you what, Eric, if you go to the drone video of this one, you don't have to. We're rounding at the top of the screen and going away from everybody else. And you can see that there's a dark patch above us.
Yeah, they're going to be playing in here in a little bit.
And Jeff Endress is a PRO. Jeff is also the guy that we bought the boat from. And
so you're the yellow sail back behind the radial sail, just so we're clear here.
Yeah, thanks.
And then there's the puff coming in, right?
There was a puff coming in on us, and that's not us. We're around behind the drone right now.
It's a little harder in these multi-cams that are always switching to focus in on something, but there we are. So there's you, right?
Well, okay. And you can see that dark patch. We saw that coming down the lake, and we said, oh, we'll catch it. Nobody else will catch it, and we'll go zipping by everybody. And that would have worked, but our boat handling sucked. But one of the nice things is Jeff was very kind on the committee boat, and he says, hey, look, everybody does this. And you know what? He's right. So no big deal. No harm, no foul. Anything you want to add, Kendall? Or is it too painful?
It's painful. I think, to Eric's point earlier, there were a lot of things that we could do. And probably the worst thing that we could have done was what we did do, and that was to release the guy. Because I wasn't in a position to just drop the chute and bring it in. I was trying to get in that position, but then the guy, was released, and it was too late at that point. Then, we were struggling to bring it in any way that we could. So,
yeah.
So here you are coming in, and there you are struggling from a different angle.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure if the drone stays on that. No, it doesn't. But you'll see us in the drone shot come up to the committee boat and then veer off to get away from it. I know it's painful.
We had to avoid hitting the committee boat. Oh, painful.
What are they doing? I missed that. I know, but why? I guess
They were heading straight for them,
I saw that.
and they blew the spinner at the last minute so the spinnaker wouldn't catch the other boat.
Oh, they're coming.
That's Jeff Endress talking on the race committee.
Yeah, see, they still have to go up through there. They're in a world of hurt.
Thank you, Jeff.
Kendall knows. You don't have to tell him.
Oh, man.
Watch out.
I know, we got
to work our way
back.
Yeah, we're working our way back.
Was the race committee concerned you were going to crash into him?
Everybody's done that before.
The Jeff was not, but the other guys on the boat were.
They had their expensive cameras on board. They were probably a little worried.
Too worried about getting accident.
Yeah, I don't think it was theirs. I think it was yours, but okay.
I can't remember a time when we had to sail upwind.
I'm guessing there's some wordy dirds said.
I think I heard a few.
Race committee was
right.
right. There were some bad words being said, right?
Yeah, and again, if you watch our video, the full video on our channel, there's a lot of audio that has been bleeped out.
Yeah.
So, but okay. All right, so that's our painful one for today. The next video up, Eric, was was from this year's NACS, and I can't remember. I guess that was that was race 1, wasn't it, Kendall?
That was race 1.
Yeah.
So
if
you want to go to the
ahead and bring
shrimping?
that one up. Yeah. So here we are coming downwind on the first downwind leg. Winds were about 8 to 12. There was a current that on a port run was right on our nose. And we're not used to sailing in current, are we, Kendall?
We aren't. But we
And
learned very quickly, and we actually used it to our advantage once we figured it out.
We did, but not in this particular video. And so I'm looking at the distance that we have to cover. And with no current, we were going to cover that distance in no time. But there was a 3-knot current coming right at us, and boy, did it slow the boat down. It took us forever to get to that gate. So we do this jibe, and I tell Kendall, let's be fancy because we're close. Let's not put the pole back up. We'll just free fly it. And then eventually Kendall says, no, we're not getting anywhere. Let's get the pole back up. And I said, okay, but let's not put the topping lift on. Another mistake, because it'll make it easier to douse when we go to douse. And you'll see here in a minute, our rear camera spins around and looks at the competition coming up on our butt. And we are losing ground, rapidly losing ground. Finally, here comes, so that's Greg and Diane Kemp on the left, and I've forgotten who is on the right in the yellow chute. The yellow chute's going to go to the left-hand gate. Both us and the Kemps are going to go to the right-hand side of the gate. So we go ahead and we do the douse.
You're going to follow them in, or you're going to the right one?
And I prematurely let go of the sheet as we are doing the douse. That allowed the tack to drop down in front of the bow. Well, as soon as the tack's in front of the bow, what happens? Spinnaker goes underneath the boat. So Kendall does a really nice job. He grabs that spinnaker, he gets it out of the water, so that the only thing that's left is the rope, at least. And I jibed on his head, we come back around. And we're so concerned about the rope being underneath the boat that we take a very wide pass on this gate, Mark, and the Camps come in right behind and inside of us. Just like one of your educational videos shows how to do. They do a great job. Now here, we're still in second or third place, but now we've got the rope under the boat, and we begin to lose our head, and we begin to lose track of the fleet. And we don't even really recognize that until we analyze the video. And we ended up in 7th place in this race. So, and if we'd ended up in 4th even, we would have come in first overall.
Yeah, to put this in context, this was our first North American Championships
Race
in
number
Flying
1.
Scott. And first race, Challenger Series, we didn't know how, we were going to do. We led this first race to the windward mark, and then we lost ground, and we were second around at the pin end, or I'm sorry, at the gate, but we kept losing so much speed, and you could see Camp was just pulling away from us because he had so much momentum going around, since we were not really flying that chute for speed, and we ended up 7th here. Now I think overall in this regatta we won 3 races. We came in 2nd, but had we just stayed in front of Camp here, we probably would have won the regatta, but we just kept, in terms of the Challenger fleet, but we just kept losing ground, and we kind of lost our head after this happened, and our head was not in the game like it should have been. And we recovered for other races, but it cost us.
Yeah.
One thing that Dave Rink and I talked about in past episodes is it's a lot easier to sail from a desk when you're watching it on a computer screen when you're not going through it, and a lot easier to stay calm. But I think the key takeaway there is, as you said it several times, is you lost your head, and I do it all the time, so I can't throw stones. But I think the lesson here and the thought process here is when you round that mark, getting a good mark rounding, sailing fast, and not losing ground is probably more important than getting that line out from underneath the boat, because there's plenty of time in that upwind leg to get that line out. But it's a lot easier said than done when trying to keep your head calm and cool. But I would think that would be an important lesson learned here, just to make sure that, hey, let's stay in good position. Let's focus on where the wind's coming from. Let's focus on sailing fast, and then let's worry about getting the line when we're in a good spot to do it. Because you're probably not even an eighth of the way up the leg here, and Kendall did a great job of getting it fixed, and you're already done. So I think that just reinforces the idea that there's plenty of time to get that fixed.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on there, Eric, and you're right. You and Dave Rink are absolutely right. It's easier to race behind a computer screen than it is on the boat. But that's the advantage of the videos, because now you can go back and race on the computer screen, and that's where I think the cementing of the lesson in your brain really takes place.
Yep.
So.
Well, that's a great example, and there's so many. I've watched so many of your videos, so we got plenty here. Don't you guys have a video queued up to where we can look at how you position the camera, so you can look at your sail trim or your telltales? Was it mid?
Actually, I think that might be the next one that we're talking about. Or no, there was one. I think there is one. That was the midwinters.
Let's go to that one.
Race 2. Here we go. So we have a picture in picture here. And yeah, the audio is essentially worthless here. But what we've done, we captured video from the front camera and from the rear camera. And what we've done is we've had the rear camera focus on the leech of the main, and the forward camera focus on the luff of the jib. And what allowed us to do is watch those telltales continuously throughout the entire race, so that we know whether the sails are properly trimmed or not. And as a result of this analysis, we discovered that our boom vang was actually improperly rigged. It's hard to see on this small screen, but if you go to our Sailing with my brother YouTube channel, you can blow it up to a large screen, and you can see when we're pinching, and you can see when we're not properly trimmed on the main. So you want that main, and you've had a great video with the Horwitzes, Eric, talk about how much you want to stall that main. You want to take that main and put it right on the edge of stall pretty much all the time, which means, you want it to flow about 60%, stall about 40%. And what you see is that main, which is the powerhouse of the Scott, is stalling about 3% of the time in this video. We didn't know that at the time. So it helped us to figure that out, and that helped us understand how to ramp up the speed on the boat. Right, Kendall?
Indeed. And, these are great indicators. One of the things that you'll notice from this particular video as well is that you see Kevin, looking back behind the boat a lot, trying to track the competition. Now, if you compare this to regattas that we raced starting with the North American Championships in 2024 and later, it took us about probably 40 to 50 races, maybe about 10 regattas, maybe a little bit more than 10 regattas, 10 to say 12 or 13 regattas, for us to really figure out what our roles were on the boat as two crew members. And from the North American Championships forward, Kevin is focused way more on boat speed and sail trim, and I'm focused on, tactical decisions. And so my spending time as a crew in the front and being able to look around at where the boats are, is, really has given Kevin an opportunity to focus more on that boat speed and make sure that we're going as fast as we can. So you'll see that as a difference between this particular race and say some of the races from North American Championships and beyond.
Yeah, and one of the things that's freed me up to do, if he's looking at the boats and I'm not, and I'm focused on boat speed, a lot of the boat speed comes from the main. So if the main is properly trimmed and stalling or right on the edge of stall all the time, and I'm watching the heading using the jib loft telltales, the boat goes so much faster and more consistent. Of course, you still have to worry about heel angle, but that's easily adjusted by trim and hiking. So,
yeah, good.
Well, all right. Well, we are probably at the point where we probably want to start wrapping up. I think we went through some amazing footage. I think you showed us the educational value. We're definitely getting a lot of pointers out of it. So obviously you do. I mean, you obviously are still doing it. So you haven't stopped. You haven't got burnt out yet. So obviously you're still learning a lot and still doing it. I mean, can you tell people how important it is to your improvement? Do you think it's a big deal? Do you think it's just kind of a nice to have, or do you think it's really made a meaningful impact in the quality of your performance?
Go ahead, Kendall.
Well, I would say it's made a huge difference. I think, at the end of every regatta, we've put together a list of around 10 items that we want to improve for the next regatta. And we try not to make the list too huge, because you can't, you can't put 30 items on there and expect that you're going to, do all those, 30 items on the next regatta. But we've just tried to make incremental improvements from one to the next. And, these videos have made a huge difference, because we can see exactly what it is that we're doing and be thinking about not making the same mistakes over and over again. And, you can see it in the results as well. So, yeah. Kevin?
Yeah. There's always a learning curve slope. And, we stopped sailing together for 30 years, and coming back together, we knew the basics, the fundamentals, but we didn't know the specifics about the Scott, and we've forgotten a stunning amount of information about each other. And the videos steepened that learning curve significantly. So I'm thrilled to death that we're using them. And I would encourage, especially if you are have an inconsistent crew, having the videos, I think, makes a huge difference, because you can learn from your mistakes and help identify new crew mistakes quickly and give them pointers on the race course. So yeah. I love it. I'm a big believer.
Yeah.
Has there been any instances where you felt that it's been a distraction? There's obviously a lot going on at regattas, and a lot of things are happening. It's hard to stay focused. There's a checklist. You can forget something important. Has dealing with the cameras ever been a distraction? And how would you suggest people keep it fun or keep it so that it isn't a distraction?
That's such a great question. And it can be a distraction if you allow it to be. So we have a certain cadence that we use. We do bring extra batteries. We're on a Insta360 1X2. That's the second version. They're all the way up to the fourth version. And the batteries, I think, go at least twice as long now as they did on the X2. But we have extra batteries. And so what we do is we set it and forget it. We turn it on, and in between each race, we'll swap out the battery, and then we'll turn it on before the 5-minute gun. But we literally, if we forget to turn it on, if we forget to change the battery, we don't bother. It doesn't come up. I would say that, if people are doing this, if you get the latest technology and you have longer batteries, longer lasting batteries, that's less of a distraction. Get a terabyte, storage on it, so that you don't run out. And if you're then the only thing you have to worry about is changing the batteries. If you have to change if you get I don't know, 50 gig or 110 gig or something like that, a memory chip. I mean, you could need to be changing that during a regatta as well, and you just don't want that part of it to be a distraction. But don't let it take over what you're doing in your sailing. Set it, forget it. If you go back and the videos don't even exist, then don't worry about it.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add is once in a while the jib sheets will tangle around the forward camera, and that is something that I, as a helmsman, can see really easily, much easier than Kendall can in the front. And so I'll yell a code word, camera, 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 and he'll see it and immediately pop that sheet off.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think this has been super helpful. And anybody watching, if you're thinking about getting a camera or doing it, please consider me a resource. And when it comes to Insta360s, I'm going to be learning it. And if I can't answer your questions, I'm going to talk to these guys, and I can hopefully help you. I'm going to be getting one soon. Another idea is if you want to try and get a camera and you don't want to buy one, or maybe it's just for one-time use, there's a place called lensrentals.com, and you can rent these things from other places as well. That allows you to go through the process of recording your stuff and not having to front a bunch of money for something you're only going to use once. So there are some cool options for you to take advantage of that, and so look into that. Guys, what would you like to say to everybody before we sign off?
Just really appreciate the support everybody's given us. It's great to get the feedback on the videos. Some of them are exciting, and others of them are like watching paint dry, but if you can learn something from them, great. If you have any suggestions about what we should focus on in the future, don't hesitate to make a comment on our YouTube channel, Sailing with My Brother. And appreciate the support.
Yeah, the class has been unbelievably supportive of our learning curve. There's one, just very quickly, there's one, we were at Ephraim, there's one race where we had a general recall, and Mark, on Mac Boat, can't remember his last name. Anyway, Mark comes up after the general recall and he says, "You did everything right, but this." And he told us exactly what we did wrong. I captured it all on video. We did it right on the recall start, and damned if we didn't beat him. So the course has been awesome, or the class has been awesome in their support. Yeah.
Well, if you beat Mark Johnson, you're doing really well. Mark is a fantastic sailor. He's a great person, fantastic sailor, and always helpful. So guys, thanks a lot, everybody who's watching. Go out and take some videos. And if you see speaking of videos, if you see good videos that you want to talk about or think are interesting to talk about, please go to sailboatinstructor.com and submit those videos. And we will hopefully maybe talk about those in a future episode. And we talked about some great regattas. If you are interested in racing and want to race with us, go to FlyingScottSailing.com and look at the event calendar. There's a lot of great regattas. The Flying Scott class is an amazing, offers just such amazing opportunities to race. And if you want to race with us at the Glow next year, please put it on your calendar and in September and come race with us. You saw some footage of 220 boat fleets. It's a lot of fun, and we're going to be doing it next year. So please come join us. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you at the next episode.